Hey guys, so this tutorial is really going to go over some of the errors in Revit or some of the problems that you might come across. These are common because a lot of students come across this at the start. So I've made a list of these kind of things throughout my time delivering Revit, and yeah, so just so that you know if you come across an error, how you fix it. And usually the errors are tends to be down to how things are viewed, and you can't find things when I'm asking you to find things in the tutorials. So the first one is you're missing your panels. So you're missing these top panels. Okay, so sometimes you're either gone or they're minim or you don't have the full set. This little button here scrolls through the different viewing of that panel. Okay, I usually have a set to that, but some people who obviously use shortcuts and that kind of stuff probably don't need them, so they have it all minimized. But from me, I recommend you have the full set on because that's what I refer to when I deliver my tutorials. So if you do find yourself having minimal panels, or they're all missing at the top, that's how you get the back. So there should be a little button like that that has them, so you can cycle through all of them. So sometimes these are activated through keyboard shortcuts, which you might accidentally, obviously, click on when you're modeling. Okay, so that's how you get that one back at the top there. The other one that always commonly happens is you either find yourself missing either properties or project browser, one or the other, or both by accident. Again, I mentioned this in the previous tutorial where you can't actually do much without them because you use project browser to get around the model and use the properties panel to dictate how you model. So you'll usually find you can't do much unless you have both of them on. So you're kind of stuck at that point. If either of or both go missing, the way to get them back is to go to View, User Interface, which is the last one on the toolbar set, and then click on Project Browser and Properties. Okay, so make sure they're ticked on, and it'll find itself back on. So if I tick that off, if I go back in, take it back on, it will put it back to where it was previously. Okay, so that's how you get your project browser or your properties back on the drawing board. Now, another thing that happens is in some tools you have to either confirm or reject your actions. Okay, and what that means is you can't do anything else until that step is done. Now, I'm going to demonstrate that quickly here. So, for example, if I go to a floor and I create a floor in this tool, and I think I'm done, I've finished it, and I want to go create a wall, I'll go back to all these panels and they'll all be grayed out. They're grayed out because in some tools, if you see this tick and cross, it means you either have to confirm that tool and you finish with that tool, or you have to discard it. Okay, it won't let you do anything beyond that stage until you do one or the other. So if you find yourself not being able to do anything after that and it's all grayed out, it means you're still in a tool somewhere. Usually on the top tabs there, the green one will be the active one, and then you'll see the tick or the cross there. Okay, and make sure obviously if you're happy with to proceed into the next stage, you obviously tick it. If you want to discard what you just did in that step, so this is to create a floor. If I don't want to create that floor, then obviously just click the X and it will go back, and then you've got your toolbar, all your tools bar back again. Another thing that happens in Revit is saving projects. Okay, so I'll bring in another folder here. So this is projects. So in Revit, you'll save it as a project. Okay, but automatically you'll see in your wherever you save it, you'll see Revit files with numbers next to them. So 006, 007, or in this case 6, 5, and 4. These are backups of Revit. Okay, so Revit automatically makes a series of backups by default as you're modeling. Okay, so in case there's any errors, and then it deletes the backup. So I think they're on cycle for 3 backups or 4 backups at a time. You can obviously adjust that in the settings and that if you want. But by default, you've got three or 4 backups that are made by Revit automatically. Okay. However, you always start off with your original file. So if you, for example, started off and you saved your file off as house_start, that it will create a series of backups. But when you come back to working on that, you shouldn't go back to the numbered ones. A lot of students, what they do is click the most recent numbered one, thinking that's the most recent file, and start from there. But it's not. Your original one will be always the most up-to-date version of your model. Only time you ever go back to use any of the numbered ones is if you have any errors in the original file, in which case you might have to go back to the previous step to kind of, or the previous file, backup files to get that model back. But essentially, you always start with, you always open up that original file that you created. That will be the most up-to-date file that you're modeling on. Okay, because a lot of students, they come back and tell me that they're missing a lot of work that they did, or they're missing a lot of work that they thought they'd done in the model. That's because they've opened up a backup or have opened up a previous backup because of the numbers. So always make sure you open up the actual original file that you do create. If you are moving your files between places, so for example, if you are moving your files between computers, you only need to take the original file. You don't need to take any of the backups. Okay, so only take the original file with you if you're taking it between work or different laptops or different computers and that kind of stuff. And the other thing that tends to happen in Revit is excessive double clicking. In Revit, the only place you should really double click is the project browser. Okay, so project browser, you need to double click to get into the different drawing views and that kind of stuff. Okay, anywhere else you should not double click, and I'll show you why. Because if you double click, you open up the properties of that component. For example, if I double click on this window, it will open up the properties to edit that window as a window, as a component model. Again, this is another part of Revit which we're not really covering here. This is how you create bespoke content and bespoke components for yourself. So if you do end up doing that, you'll think, where's my model gone? You can't see a model, you just see a window and a wall, or you see a bit of furniture. Your model's still here, it's just in case you've opened up the editor for that component itself. You can either click X here to close that view off, and click no because you don't want to save anything that you've just done, because it'll edit the actual window itself. Click no, and it should go back to your model there. Okay, so your model will still be open, it's just that you opened up another step to go edit within that window, to edit the window in detail for that component. So again, that's a different part of Revit, which is slightly more advanced Revit tutorials. And so that's typically sometimes what happens. So don't be tempted to double click here. Single click selects things, so don't double click. And if you do want to double click, or I usually tell you how to do it. So for example, here, if I want to change the name of my tags here, I wouldn't double click. I would click it first and then click it again. It's the same as double clicking, but it's doing it in two steps, so you don't get into that component editing window. The final thing is making sure you save your work. Okay, so saving is up here, so you should see save. So constantly save your work as you go through it. You can save in different files, but if you click the save button there, it will save on. So it will save. It will also save backups, obviously, automatically in the background. But make sure you save your work. But before, when you start your project, you must make sure you save it as a project. So save as project. Do not save it as a template, because some students save it as a template, in which case you can't do much with a template in terms of later on, in terms of because they're templates. Okay, you save it as a project. So if I'll save as project, and then you get that, and then you can put it wherever you want. Okay, the way to know it's a project is because it's an RVT file. Templates are a different file type. So that's how you save it. Okay, and then periodically you can click the save button up there, and that saves it, or Control S on your keyboard will save it as well. And the backups are created again at intervals based on the defaults of Revit.